Alright guys, so today is Wednesday. We're going to go ahead and begin the process of doing this. I believe most people call this skinning. I looked up a lot of videos, so I have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to do this. This is my first time, so it might not be perfect, but I have watched a lot of videos, so I'm pretty confident in how this is going to turn out, how it's going to look. So right now I have my panel right here. I went ahead and sanded it down already. It did take me a lot of work to be able to do mine because some of the old paint started coming off. So if that does happen, you need to go ahead and remove all of it. If not, go ahead and sand it down until it's completely smooth and you can't feel the groove anymore between the paint and the actual panel itself. And that did take me some time. I already smoothing it out and everything. If you guys are wondering what I used my sander over there along with I think it's a 120 to get the grooves out. I added a filler primer, which is going to fill up some of the areas. That way you can sand it down, then fill it up again. You probably can't tell, but right here, a huge spot of paint just came off, and if you look at it right now, it's completely smooth. You can't feel anything. That's where you want to get to. Make sure you're completely smoothing it down. If you're doing a product that doesn't have any paint, all you have to do is just sand it down with 220 and you're pretty much good to go. That's the main reason you're going over it with 220, is so the panel or the carbon fiber actually sticks to the panel and it adheres properly, creates a bond. That's the carbon fiber right there. I pretty much purchased, I believe it's about 4 yards, so it is quite a bit. That way I can go ahead and do 2 panels. I pretty much purchased all the products that I'm using from Amazon, so if you guys are interested in purchasing it, I'll go ahead and link it down below. I also ordered a scale. Once I start doing the mixing and everything, I'll show you how you're going to be doing it and how to use the actual scale. It was only like 12 bucks, so I'll link it down below, that way you guys can check it out. And here I have what I'm going to be using. Here's the epoxy and the hardener. This is a 2-in-1 solution, meaning that you have to use 2 of this and then 1. When you're mixing it, you're going to go ahead and use, like, let's say 50 grams of this, and then you're going to go ahead and use 25 of this. It's a mixed ratio of 2 to 1, just in case you guys are wondering. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the carbon fiber weave right now, how it looks, how to check it out to make sure that it is in perfect condition. I did find a small defect on it, but it's in an area that I don't really need, so I should be perfectly fine. But let me go ahead and unwrap it for you guys, that way you guys can see how it looks. Usually you want to have it in direct sunlight or have a light on it so you can see the imperfections and everything. In my case, I already checked everything. There are like no imperfections except for one, which is all the way over here. Now you can kind of see it from a distance. Yeah, you can clearly see it right there. So if you get close enough to it, you can see that there's an imperfection. It's a bunch of like strands, so there's nothing I can really do about that. If you guys run into an issue like that, I would go ahead and send it back, because then it's going to show up on your panel when you're putting it on there. Because there's strands, there's nothing you can really do about it to fix it. It's just going to pretty much stay like that. So because it's all the way at the corner, I'm perfectly fine. As you guys can see by this panel right here, I clearly only need about this much right here. And then for my next one, it's going to be about the same, which is going to be about this much right here. So I still have a lot left for whatever else I want to do. I do have some other ideas on things I want to change on the car, make it into carbon fiber, so it's going to look pretty sick. So make sure you measure before you actually cut, because you don't want to cut it too short. You want to cut it exactly to the shape of the item or the panel that you're putting it on. Cut enough excess to leave enough to be able to cut around after you actually put it on there. Now, a question that I had that I didn't really get in a lot of videos is, what kind of epoxy are you pretty much using, and are you changing it? So pretty much throughout the entire process, you are technically using like the same epoxy or hardener, except for the last one, you want to use like a UV protectant. But for the first coat, you want to use a base coat. Now what a base coat is pretty much your first coat that's going to go on there. That's going to be black. That way you don't see any spots through the carbon fiber. So for example, if I lay this carbon fiber on top of this panel with this color, you may see some spots of this gray through the carbon fiber. So what we're going to be doing that to eliminate that is we're going to be using this black paint here. I ordered it on Amazon as well. It's epoxy paint. This is supposedly good for a whole gallon. So that means that you don't need to use a lot. You may only need to use like a few drops for this to work properly and make it completely black. You will need this to add it for the first coat. That way it's completely black and you don't see any gray spots anywhere. So this is really important. Let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and start adding the base coat onto the panel. That way it's completely black. Once I do that, I'll explain to you what I'm doing next. So before we go ahead and start working on this panel right here, and before we start adding like the resin and the carbon fiber or anything, let's actually see how much it weighs before and then after. So I have my little scale right here. We're gonna go ahead and put it on to see how much it weighs. It actually weighs pretty much close to nothing. It doesn't weigh that much. I can literally pick it up with one hand. See? It's super light. It's just fiberglass. Nothing much to it. So let's go ahead and put it on the scale. And it's at 63.79. All right, so let's go ahead and start working on this one. And then once I have my final result, I'll weigh it on there again to see how much it weighs. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and start adding our epoxy. So we're gonna put the cup on top. I'm gonna cancel that out. Let's do 6 of resin. 3 of the hardener. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and mix it for about 3 minutes. Add our black coat on here. It's been about 2 minutes since I've been mixing it, so that should be good enough. Make sure you get all around the edges and everything. That way you don't miss anything that you haven't mixed. So that's good. If you see bubbles, use a heat gun in order to take out all the bubbles. Now we're gonna go ahead and start applying it on there. Alright, so now we went ahead and added our base coat. This is how it's looking for right now. We're gonna let it dry until it feels tacky. I'll go ahead and show you guys once we get to that point. We'll see how it looks after we add the carbon fiber. This is just the base coat, which is the one under it. And after that, we have to add the carbon fiber on top. Once it gets to that point, you're supposed to wait about 2 hours, but I would have you check every once in a while just to see where it's at, because not all epoxies react the same. So let's give it a few hours, and then we'll come back to it to see when it's at that point. All right, so I decided to go ahead and do a second coat. If you guys look at this side over here, see how it still has like some of that gray right there? And then if you look at this one, it's really dark. I would go ahead and add 2 coats just to make it a little bit darker. Here's the reason why you want to make sure that it's dark, because if you look at this right there, you can see the society sticker right here through the carbon fiber. So now think about that on this. You're going to be able to see all those spots right there. So that's the reason you want to go ahead and do that. Make sure you do go ahead and cover it. Make sure it looks completely black, or you're going to have some white spots just like we do over there with the society sticker. So yeah, let's finish the second coat. I didn't make too much of the second one. I only made 2 and 1 of the mix. All right, so the second coat is now on there. We're going to allow it to tack up. Once it gets to that point, I'll show you guys how it's supposed to look. I don't have anything right now, but if you look at this, grab like a stick or something, or maybe this right here, this looks old. So see that right there? See how I touch it and it still gets on my finger? We have to wait until we can touch it and nothing comes out. So even then, this has been on here for about, I think it's been like 4 hours, maybe 3 hours, and it's still not all the way tacky. So we need to wait at least like 5 hours for this thing to get to the point where we want it to in order to be able to put the weave on there. You want to make sure that it's not too tacky to the point where it's going to absorb it and go through the carbon fiber. That's why we need to wait to that certain point so it looks nice and clean when we apply it on there. So it's going to take some time. It's already getting late. I think I applied the first coat like at 1. It's currently 5. I just barely put the second coat on there. So we're going to have to wait until like 10 at night, maybe even later, until we can go ahead and put the carbon fiber weave on there. Alright guys, so I already stuck on the carbon fiber fabric onto the panel, and it looks super good. Now, to explain the tackiness, there's some residue right here that I can show you guys, but what you want to do is you want to touch it, and it's going to be sticky, but nothing's going to come on your finger. So see how it looks clean? Now let's touch it. See how my finger gets stuck on it and it pulls it, but nothing comes off. So that's what you want. Right now, this is how it's looking. It looks really good. Like, I was really scared I was gonna get some imperfections. I got super lucky because on this end over here, it was starting to split because I kept pulling it up. But after a few tries, picking it up, putting it back on, it was very forgiving. So it did allow me to pull it and then put it back on. So that was really good. I thought it was just gonna get stuck on there and wasn't gonna allow me to pull it back off. But I did it a few times until I could get it. Having a second person is really gonna help, especially with a big panel like this, to be able to pull it up, put it down. That way it goes nice and smooth. So I did have two people help me. I had my girlfriend who was helping me out with it. It really helped a lot. Like, her helping me out, putting it on there, made it a lot easier instead of me struggling, trying to get it on one side and the other side. But you can see it from a distance. It looks so good, dude. I'm really happy with how this came out. I already cut off the edges. You do want to keep the old one because you can actually reuse that for other parts, or you can cut it up to make forged carbon fiber. So I would highly suggest keeping it. Don't throw it away. Don't leave it out. So what we're gonna do right now is I'm gonna grab some tape. We're gonna put it on the ends, and then we're gonna have this fold in. That way it creates a nice border on the outside. That way when we add the epoxy, it actually goes around and it hardens it, so it stays that way. And it looks all nice and clean on the edges as well. It's coming out really dope. And then when you are putting the carbon fiber, do not push it. You're just gonna tap it and make it stick on there. Because if you pull it and you try pushing it, you could mess up the weave, and you don't want to do that, especially if you're not using gloves. So here's how the back looks. It has all the tape around it, covering everything up. That way it sticks on there. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just have it on there secure so it doesn't move. The last part I need to do is I need to cut this one out. This hole right here. I'm a little bit nervous about this one because I have to cut it just right. That way it can curve around. You don't want to cut too much because then you're going to leave gaps inside of the edges. You don't want to have any gaps because you want to make it look clean. I'm going to try cutting like in the middle right here. And then I'm going to cut slits up to right here. That way it can go around it. I already cut off the middle. And then what I'm doing is I'm pretty much pushing it. And the areas where it doesn't want to push in, I'm going to go ahead and cut slits. So for example, right here, it doesn't want to go ahead and go all the way down. I'm going to cut one slit and then fold it in. Especially right here. Right here doesn't want to go all the way down. It just sticks back up. So I'm going to go ahead and create another slit right there. And I'm going to cut it right here. So now we cut it, and now it goes up a lot easier. Same thing over here. It wants to stay. So we're not cutting all the way. It still has some space right there to make sure that it covers up the entire surface and then molds to the circle. There you go. The hole's not cut out. Looks nice and clean, round. Now we need to go ahead and add the top coat, which is pretty much going to harden it, make it stay that way. It's looking super dope. I think it's just going to look sick, having the carbon fiber fenders, carbon fiber hood, then my carbon fiber hatch, and then I'm going to have my carbon fiber overfenders. I think it's just going to flow so well. Alright guys, so I'm pretty much going to end the video there. There's still a lot of work to do, a lot of things we got to get to. First, we're going to go ahead and allow this to completely cure. Once it cures, it's pretty much going to stay on there completely so it doesn't move at all. Then we're going to add our next coat of resin. That resin is pretty much going to stay on there, adhere to it, and then we're going to add a second coat once that gets really tacky. So we want to add pretty much layers on top of it so we can go ahead and sand it and make it completely smooth, and we're going to go through the carbon. After we go ahead and add those two coats, we do need to go ahead and sand it down. Once we sand it, then we have to add another coat again, which is going to take another few days. So it is a long process. It is going to take some time, but we're going to get there, and I think it's looking pretty sick. So stay tuned to the channel. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. That way you guys can stay updated to things that are coming to the cars for the Q50 and the 370Z as well, and to stay updated on new posts and new things that are going on. So make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.